With Pokémon Pokopia having been released on March 5th, 2026, and with it having brought a huge lore dump, it is time to answer the following question. What can Pokémon Pokopia say about Pokémon Legends Arceus? Now the reason why I don't just call it when does Pokémon Pokopia take place in is because the answer to that is pretty obvious. It is set in a post-apocalyptic future. But more importantly, this gets much more deeper than that, because when I said earlier that it took place in a post-apocalyptic future, that is not the full answer. In order to get the full answer, we need to look at Old Verse 20 back in Legends Arceus. Old Verse 20 states that in Apocalypse, the humans had evacuated the land in search of the sun, and the land that was left behind became only populated by Pokémon. And sure enough, there are multiple logs in Pokopia that tell that humans had to evacuate the Pokémon world and blast off to space, leaving the Pokémon world behind to be populated only by Pokémon. Implying that the apocalypse that is depicted in Old Verse 20 is the same apocalypse as the one that is portrayed in Pokopia. Additionally, the ending for the game reveals that humans are still alive in space in Pokopia. And since there are obviously humans in Legends Arceus, it means that the humans must have returned from space at some point after the events of Pokopia, and therefore Pokopia must take place before Legends Arceus. But that's not even the full answer, as we still haven't figured out the possible exact years that the game could take place in. We know that civilization needs to take around 50 years in order to start rebuilding itself to the levels we see in Legends Arceus, where Jubilife Village was built on top of the ruins of Jubilife City. However, we also know that Pokopia is about rebuilding civilization, albeit one that is run and managed by Pokemon instead of humans, suggesting that the time frame between Pokopia and Apocalypse is shorter than 50 years. And additionally, the fact that there are still ruins of the modern day in Pokopia, unlike in Legends Arceus where the ruins have mostly been weathered away and built on top of, implies that Pokopia takes place not too long after the apocalypse. Potentially as early as only 10 years after the apocalypse, and since the apocalypse happens no earlier than 2050, it means that the minimum date for Pokopia is 2060. As for the maximum date, it's entirely possible that the humans return from space the year after Pokopia takes place, and as stated previously, it takes around 50 years in order for the humans to rebuild civilization up to Legends Arceus levels, which means that Pokopia could potentially take place as late as 51 years before Legends Arceus, and since Legends Arceus takes place no later than 2498, it means that the maximum date for Pokopia is 2447. And that was our full answer. Pokémon Pokopia takes place anywhere from 2060 to 2447. And as is tradition in this channel, if I had to guess the exact year, my guess would be on 2126, as it's exactly 100 years after the release of the game in the human world. However, the video is about what does Pokopia mean for Legends Arceus, not just its timeline placement, and we finally arrived at that part. Because it immediately means that Legends Arceus can only take place as early as 2111 and not 2100, as the game can now only take place no earlier than 61 years after the apocalypse. Which means that Legends Arceus now takes place anywhere from 2111 to 2498. As for the exact year on the other hand, my guess still remains unchanged at 2222. Now if you couldn't tell it, Pokopia makes it very clear that Legends Arceus takes place in the post-apocalyptic future, but we already know that as I've already made a video on that subject titled When Does Pokémon Legends Arceus Really Takes Place In, which I suggest you to watch it if you haven't already. As for the cause of the apocalypse, Pokopia has finally solved it for us. Mewtwo states that humans had caused the apocalypse by being careless with science, meaning that the cause of the apocalypse was man-made. And combined with Old Verse 20, which states that the sun got blocked out in the apocalypse, it means that the apocalypse was partly caused by a small-scale nuclear war, although climate change remains the main cause, as a nuclear war causes a nuclear winter to occur when the sun gets blocked out by soot produced by nuclear weapons. You may recall my other Legends Arceus video titled What Caused the Apocalypse on Pokémon Legends Arceus to Happen, which was published before the announcement of Pokopia by the way, that I speculated that the apocalypse was caused by a nuclear war. Which means that Pokopia proved me half right. A nuclear war was indeed responsible for the apocalypse but wasn't the main cause of it, and therefore the video aged partially like wine. It's amazing to see that I was able to predict this by only using evidence from Legends Arceus. Finally, there's one thing that I'd like to mention, Leaf in Legends Arceus. You see, Leaf states that people in Kanto were able to tame Pokémon. And while at first glance it seems like a reference to Pokeballs, after all, Pokeballs were a Cantonian invention, being invented in 1925 by Professor Westwood in Southern University. But considering that Legends Arceus takes place way after the invention of Pokeballs, it can't be that. Instead, it has to do with something else entirely, one that is linked with Pokopia. Because Pokopia is about rebuilding Kanto to be a place where not only Pokemon can live and thrive, but also potentially humans. And that last part is important because when the humans do eventually return from space, they'll already have their place accommodated for in Kanto, allowing the humans to very easily tame Pokemon by simply treating them as equals with no Pokeballs required. Which is why Ditto transforms into a human so that the Pokemon in Kanto can prepare for the arrival of actual humans from space. I could go on and talk about the more speculative stuff, but I have a feeling that it should deserve its own video. So I won't go any further and instead stop here for this video. But if you want to see that happen, make sure to drop a comment so that I could start working on it.